Imagine being mistaken for a genius in acting, but nothing is as it seems. Here, our protagonist has a few little secrets that make him stand out from the rest. Without further delay, let's dive into the recap. Our boy found himself standing before judges where a beautiful girl, captivated by his acting, inquired if he'd graduated from university theater or studied abroad. He responded that he was self-taught. Another judge, stunned by his skill, declared this wasn't amateur acting. For our boy, however, it hadn't been difficult. He then started to leave, demanding they exclude his performance from broadcasts, threatening to sue if they did, leaving the judges speechless. The girl thought his self-taught claim a total lie. Another judge sensed that entering the entertainment jungle, he'd become a monster. Woojin stood outside embarrassed, recalling that black square appearing just before their sudden acting request. A day prior, before this chaos, Woojin felt dizzy from excessive drinking the previous night. His memory stopped at round 2, throwing his resignation at his toad-like CEO and celebrating with friends. Woojin realized his deep trouble. Then his phone rang. Youngdae called, asking if he got home safely. Woojin's memory was blank. Youngdae reminded him he'd vanished for 30 minutes while drinking. Woojin asked why Youngdae called. Youngdae reminded him of their agreement to attend the super actor preliminary audition together. Confused, Woojin listened as Youngdae explained Super Actor was SBC Network's popular reality show to discover hidden stars, gaining attention with participants from trainees to ordinary talent seekers. Woojin noted Youngdae once called acting just a hobby, now pursuing it professionally. Youngdae told him to shut up, clarifying he'd asked Woojin along because Hyo passed round 1. Woojin, memory gone, felt unenthused. Nervous Youngdae begged for support, promising limitless samgyeopsal and soju afterward. Woojin thanked him, angering Youngdae. Youngdae then revealed Hong Hyeon was a judge. Hearing her name next day, Woojin blushed intensely. Arriving, over half the seats were filled. Excited to see the top goddess, Woojin suggested a seating spot. Youngdae trembled nervously. Woojin questioned why, since he'd performed free at an acting club. Minutes later, Youngdae looked like a troubled mummy, urgently needing the toilet. Woojin told him to hurry. Youngdae left, insisting they contact him if called. Woojin laughed, doubting he'd return in 3 minutes. 10 minutes passed. Panicked, Woojin wondered what happened, why the delay, and what if his name was called. At that perfect moment, the announcer called them both. As Woojin tried leaving, thinking he misheard, the announcer called again. Woojin wondered if Youngdae fell into the toilet. He apologized, explaining Youngdae just went to the washroom and he'd fetch him. The announcer said Youngdae was up first. They couldn't wait long. Disqualification loomed if he delayed. Not wanting that shame, Woojin requested more time. The announcer spoke into his microphone, then smiled eerily, guiding Woojin that Youngdae could arrive late. As Woojin opened the door, the judges were before him. He stood nervously. The announcer stated round 1 auditions were filming and he'd be guided shortly. But Woojin, amazed seeing Hyeon, thought her appearance stunning. A man handed him a script. Today's assignment was improvisational acting. Looking at it, a strange black square appeared beside it. Curious, he poked it. His whole body glowed. He was sucked inside. Slowly opening his eyes, he saw darkness surrounding him. Suddenly, a new script appeared titled Unknown of Great F. Only approximately 10% was readable. Grabbing it, he wondered if this was the earlier script. New words materialized. He touched the frightened man option. The black square finished preparation, implementing only approximately 10%. Hearing that voice, Woojin started asking, "Is anyone here?" As the reading started, the entire space shifted into a crimson forest. Looking around, Woo wondered, "Is this a dream?" He realized it felt far too vivid for that. Suddenly sensing danger, he began sprinting as fast as he could. He had to keep running non-stop, yet wondered why he was fleeing right now. Then he understood he was being chased. Abruptly, a man materialized behind him, shouting for him to halt. Woo's foot snagged on a root, causing him to fall. The man drew near. Woo was weeping and pleading for mercy. Suddenly, shock surged through him as the man stabbed him with a knife. The man laughed at him while Woo endured brutal torture. In reality, he screamed loudly, collapsing before the judges. They were all startled by his performance, but Haein most of all. Lying on the floor, Wu wondered what he had just done. He felt mortified, having unintentionally exposed his experience from the black square, and decided to flee as if nothing happened. With sparkling eyes, Heian asked where he'd learned to act. Internally screaming at how stunning Heian was, Wu kept his expression neutral. He needed to handle his embarrassment first. Acting brave, he replied no, he had taught himself. Surprised, one judge asked how he performed so well then. Wu answered it wasn't that hard, thinking let's not focus on his embarrassment just because I'm also embarrassed. As he left, stating he'd sue if they used his performance on broadcasts, they were bewildered. They thought he acted brilliantly. After briefly scanning the script, Heian declared his claim of being self-taught was an utter lie. Thus began the snowball of misunderstanding, with only Wu oblivious. Outside, he met Young Dae, who had succeeded on his bathroom trip. Wu asked if he'd done well in preliminaries, but Young Dae had been eliminated in 15 seconds. Young Dae asked if Wu had gone in instead because the judges inquired about him. Wu felt sudden embarrassment and said it was nothing special. Seeing the script with Young Dae, Wu requested to take it. As Young Dae handed it over, the black square appeared. Wu knew touching it would suck him into that strange space again. He read it, and indeed it felt exactly like the experience he'd had in the mountains. Now certain he'd chosen Frightened Man, or similar, he needed to verify things. He asked Young Dae if he had any scripts at home. Young Dae replied yes, asking why suddenly. Wu complained the smell was bad and opened a window for fresh air. Young Dae remarked the guy randomly wanting to visit sure complained a lot. Searching the house, Young Dae asked why he suddenly wanted scripts, adding that Wu, who never watched TV, needed to check something. As Wu expected, he found 2 from aired network dramas. Seeing the black square next to these scripts too, he finished checking the first. He decided to check the time on the second. Touching the black square and telling Young Dae to watch closely, he reappeared in that subspace. Observing the white square, it seemed to Wu the number kept growing as he acquired new scripts or screenplays. Deciding to exit, he realized he was trapped. He started shouting random words, finally shouting exit, he returned. Young Dae was baffled. Wu was gone 5 minutes, yet no time passed. Then Young Dae's smartphone rang. Whispering to Wu after talking, he said the super actor PD wanted to speak. Wu's forgotten shame resurfaced. First, lowering his voice, he said yes. She explained they contacted him because he came with a friend but passed. Then she asked if he planned to return to super actor. Wu wondered if they were mocking him. Acting tough, he replied he didn't want to go. It was just a pastime. Awkwardly laughing, she mused how good he'd be if serious, asking if he wasn't being too honest. Wu retorted what could he do if it was true, telling her she could forget it, in his mind begging her to forget. She thought if broadcast he'd become instantly famous, so she decided to discard his footage. Wu asked if he could have the footage of his scene. She agreed, telling him to send his number. He thanked her, and she hung up. As one judge suddenly appeared, she got scared. He asked if that was the earlier guy. She said yes, but he claimed he just did it for fun and wouldn't return. For the second round, an idea occurred to him. Manu inquired if she had acquired his number. On the other side, tired Wu Jin lay on the bed. He still needed to check a few things at Kim Wai-dae's place. Due to a sudden phone call, Kim Wai-dae caused a commotion, so he left. However, he discovered critical details. If pulled into the black square, time paused in the real world. People couldn't see the black square he could see, and the word to escape that strange space was exit. Having confirmed these important details about the square, he decided to finish his earlier task. Elegant First Daughter and Thug Prosecutor were dramas that had finished airing. He decided to examine 2 book scripts and 1 screenplay. Since he couldn't take a phone into that bizarre space, he first checked their ratings and basic details. The first was rated 7.1%, the second 2.7%. After this basic check, he entered to confirm. As expected, he saw another one had been added. They were graded E and C. He was confused by the grading method. It didn't seem to Wu Jin to be about quality. Perhaps he thought it might measure popularity or performance. He was surprised checking an unproduced screenplay graded B. A B grade was the highest rating he had seen so far. Earlier, Kim Young Dae had definitely stated it was unproduced. He exited that subspace. Now he knew it was possible to confirm a works grade even before production. As he began reading the content of scripts that had already aired, his smartphone rang. His performance video, which he thought was filled with embarrassment, was sent. Still, he needed to check the evidence right after first entering the bizarre space. He felt nauseous pressing the play button. The video started, showing him screaming painfully. On the other side, the same video played. A girl, surprised by his acting, watched it and asked if they had ever actually been stabbed with a knife. She told writer Park Uni to look at that absurd expressiveness, asking when she watched if a character didn't come to mind. She remembered the role requiring behavioral analysis for a sociopath character. Uni was worried because it was very challenging, and she couldn't find an actor to portray it. However, she wanted to see Woo Jin's acting firsthand. On the other side, as Woo Jin watched that video, it was better than expected. He realized his first-round success wasn't just a bluff. He had actually passed due to his acting. He imagined himself poker-faced, telling them it wasn't difficult because he was a genius, while shocked judges asked, "Is this a participant for real?" Embarrassed, he realized what he had done back then. Woo Jin thought they wouldn't see him again, so it didn't matter much. He decided to finish the bizarre space experiment. There might still be unknown features. Still, he really didn't want to suddenly get stabbed and die. The next morning, dark circles were under his eyes. Unlike the first time, his mind was less foggy. He remembered every single line from the script's characters, even the cafe male clerks. Not just lines, but characters' five senses, emotions, everything seeped into him. Imagining himself with this level of skill, he seriously considered becoming an actor. It seemed to Woo Jin like getting to live another interesting life. Then an unknown number called him. Answering, it was producer Song Manu. Woo Jin remembered him, the one with a beard. Manu laughed, asking if they could meet as soon as possible. Sticking to the concept for now, Woo Jin told him to state the reason first. It was a bit awkward for Manu to discuss this over the phone. If possible, he preferred talking in person. Woo Jin told him they could meet at 4 p.m., his only available time. Manu told him a few other involved people were expected to come and sent the address. Woo Jin agreed. Manu thanked him. Worried, Woo Jin wondered why they asked to meet. According to Kim Wai-dae, he heard they were a big shot. He looked up how famous they were. Checking entertainment news, he was surprised they were really famous. He wondered why they wanted to meet with him, hoping it wasn't to ask him to act again. Standing there worried, he was right. Getting straight to the point, Manu said yesterday Woo Jin showed them acting not focused on dialogue. He was curious about his monologue performance. As everyone eagerly stared at him, he became extremely nervous, wondering what nonsense this was. He had a feeling, but they were really making him act. Internally panicking because he only started acting yesterday, he just kept his mouth shut. Manu said he could do it by looking at the tablet and interpret it however he preferred. He realized the black square doesn't appear here. Without it, he couldn't access the space. He guessed only paper scripts would work, but none were around. If he couldn't reach that emptiness, his acting would be exposed as fraudulent. Desperately cursing them, he wondered what to do. Wynn thought failure would frame his skills as fake, yet questioned if it mattered or if risking his life for concept acting was necessary. Wynn began acting, saying today. They watched him intensely. He added he'd been walking down the street, thinking internally he was just a commoner knowing nothing about acting. Wynn wondered if he should just be honest. He continued acting before them, saying suddenly a cat had lunged towards him. Confused, they thought his acting was trash. Wynn then muttered gibberish. Manu thought he was worse than an aspiring actor. Totally different from yesterday. Haein also thought he was utterly different from his super actor audition yesterday. Uni felt a first-year hopeful was 100 times better. He decided to just do it roughly and leave. It was meaningless. He kept acting tough. Wynn told them he was caught, so they should stop and release him now. Manu wondered what he meant, then realized Woo was acting like he couldn't act right now, and asked why. They also grasped he was expressing dissatisfaction through acting currently. Confused, Woo-in also wondered how to act incapable. Woo-in thought he'd asked for release, but Manu started saying weird things. Don't tell me, Woo-in thought. Manu reached that conclusion, seeing me as a mad genius? Whatever. He just kept his concept, replying it was because they'd suddenly demanded acting without explanation. He added it didn't feel pleasant being treated like this. Manu told him to wait, apologizing, saying to calm down. He'd been too hasty wanting to show Wuin's acting to everyone. He explained everything, requesting they please sit and listen. He was relieved when Wuin sat. He couldn't miss such a mighty monster. Manu got straight to the point. They were preparing a new drama and wanted to cast him. Wuin processed the words, then was completely bewildered, wondering if the man was serious. Yumi showed him the script's first part, the first time revealed to an outsider. She requested he choose any role and act it out. Manu asked him to freely pick any role and read a few lines. Manu was confident that once Wuin acted, the role was decided. However, they didn't know how he'd perform. Wuin said he'd read momentarily. Sometime later, they were shocked he chose Assistant Manager Park's role, the dog scene, the sociopath character Yuni wanted. She thought it wasn't assigned, yet he chose such a hard role without hesitation. She was confused when he put the script down, asking if he could do it without looking. He agreed. She wondered if he'd already understood everything. Lines, stage directions, emotions, etc. Then Manu said excitedly, "Let's start right away." Manu wondered what acting that monster would present. Win had been silent, but suddenly his gaze changed, followed by his aura. They were surprised, wondering if he'd truly grasped conveying emotions so quickly. Win said, "Go first," then looked down. They were shocked when his voice changed, saying, "It was dog poop." He returned to the subspace world. He'd stepped in dog poop. The world around him grew hazy. What was ordinary recently now resembled a fairy tale. He looked at the dog, seeming from a dream world. Feeling he needed to act fast, he said, "Here he is, son of a..." Raising his hand, saying, "He is cute, so squashy." He started touching its nose, making Wu want to pop him so it splashed everywhere. Wu broke its skull barehanded. Blood splattered across his face. Then in the real world, he slowly opened his eyes. They were all astonished, wondering how he resembled the character so much. It was as if Assistant Manager Park stood before them. Assistant Manager Park was someone Uni had agonized over, sweating blood, pulling all-nighters to create. She'd thought no one could bring him to life, but actor Kong Wen made her worries pointless. For someone's acting to overpower her script, that was something she'd never experienced before. She had already written so many scripts that she was weary of it by now, and though she'd seen numerous top actors like Hong Hyan, she had never encountered an actor like him before. She absolutely couldn't lose him. Wen sighed deeply, realizing the role itself was terrible, or rather, it was Assistant Manager Park's personality. No wonder he'd witnessed such bizarre behavior moments ago. Wen held the script, profiler Hang, and couldn't grasp their earlier discussion. He needed time to organize his thoughts. Entering the subspace brought relief, yet the situation still overwhelmed him. Wen learned they wanted to cast him for a major project, so he prioritized resolving the matter. Observing the white square, he reviewed his subspace experience and was stunned to find it ranked grade A. He questioned if A was the highest grade or if superior ones existed. Regardless, he speculated this project's viewership would likely be at least double the grade C production Thug Prosecutor. Though uncertain, he believed the script would let him test grades effectively. He searched for minor roles, eventually finding one. Since leads initially held major parts or many scenes, he chose the small role of Assistant Manager Park. Then the subspace commenced the reading. Back in the present, he wondered how they'd assess him when suddenly Uni stood up. He grew worried. She walked toward Wuan, who found her slightly intimidating and wondered if she was angry. She grabbed his hands, pleading, "Please take Assistant Manager Park's role." Smiling, she added it had to be him. Manu thought Writer Park was overly excited. How could she impulsively cast someone like that? Yet he understood. She must have wanted to secure him. Overwhelmed, Wen was startled by her sudden grasp. He asked her to release his hands first, and she apologized. Seeing the writer's reaction, he realized the subspace's power was truly incredible. Manu told Writer Park to calm down, as he had questions for Wen first. Wen mentioned self-studying acting for super actor, so Manu asked how long he'd been learning. Internally, Wen said it was only his second day, but decided to answer vaguely, acting tough. He replied he wasn't sure, saying, "It's been a while," considering his skill. Manu guessed it was probably near, if not over, 10 years. Then he wondered why Win only appeared now and asked where he self-studied. Win thought he didn't know either. Manu stated directors wouldn't have overlooked him, so he asked if he'd studied overseas. Win thought the scale was escalating and wondered if this was okay. Hyan asked if circumstances excused him from answering. Win said he would, internally giving Hyan a thumbs up for choosing the secret circumstances option, even though none existed. He'd even appeared on Super Actor. Manu thought it surely couldn't be criminal. Then they asked why he chose Assistant Manager Park's role. Yumi was curious too. Win felt saying this much was fine, but they were shocked when he answered, because his scene was short. Yumi thought it might be brief, but was 10 times harder to analyze and perform. Manu figured anyone would avoid such a troublesome role and questioned if Win was a genius or just odd. Hyan thought he was subtly showing off, acting like the role was too easy. Our poor Win nervously sensed everyone having strange thoughts. Whatever, he decided to flee first, saying he'd consider their offer outside. Win pondered, what exactly is wrong with that meeting room? Then someone called. It was Young Dae. As Win answered, Young Dae told him to meet after work tonight, as promised, for a treat. He also instructed him to return the borrowed script and scenario. Pressing the lift button, Hyan called his name. Why didn't you accept the casting offer immediately? Looking back, he was amazed by her beauty and internally thrilled. Hong Hyan is calling my name. Win replied it was as he said. He needed time to think. Honestly, he was acting arrogant. Accepting instantly would seem odd. Besides, immediate acceptance wouldn't look cool. She moved closer, asking, Are you with an agency? He thought her beauty was unreal. Could she hear his heart pounding? He denied it. She asked, Why don't you have one? He simply avoided answering and asked, Do I need a reason? She replied, No, it's not that, and inquired again, Were you actually overseas? As Win stayed silent, she realized her mistake. He must have his reasons. She apologized and asked, How old are you? Win was 27. She smiled, saying she was 2 years older. The door began opening. She farewelled him, saying it would be great to see him again on the project. As the door slowly closed, he was baffled at having conversed with Hong Hyan. Sometime later in a building, they were watching Win's previous performance. A man honestly stated that while he looked forward to it after PD Song's recommendation, he was now sure. Manu felt Win went beyond merely embodying a role. He added he'd noticed how Win switched back to himself right after the scene, effortlessly. He further said even among exceptionally talented actors, few possess such technique. He admitted he didn't know whether to call him amazing or crazy. Now Uni became greedier seeing it. She hadn't witnessed such great acting and wondered, what if he doesn't take the role? She added if it wasn't Win, who else could satisfy the standard? The blonde told him Win had said he'd think it over. He added tons of top stars awaited a casting meeting. He was sure offering a role would bring them running. He asked if they really had to consider such an arrogant guy. Manu sighed longly, replying he'd been like that since the beginning. He added kids these days called it the my way attitude. The blonde shouted that even then, Assistant Manager Park wasn't a minor part. It was a supporting role. Manu thought Win might be trying to raise his worth, so he decided to give him time to understand it. The blonde mocked, asking what fee they could possibly give a nobody like him. He hoped it was just his guess. It was the first time Manu had been this desperate, so he was speechless with a menacing expression. Uni simply said one thing, Don't be stingy with money. It felt almost like a threat to General Manager Lee. Manu suggested they should meet Win's worth. Lee reminded them they also had to consider their production's position, considering potential gossip. They decided to set the pay above average and include a confidentiality clause. Slamming the contract on the table, Lee said this was their limit. Manu then decided to call Win about the casting. On the call, Manu asked if Win had thought about it, but Win remained silent. Manu assumed he was pondering the appearance fee. Since they wanted to finalize the contract, they gave him time to think and suggested meeting tomorrow. Win agreed. Win wondered what Manu was on about. He decided to ask Young Dae about it. Later in a restaurant, he handed the script to Young Dae. Young Dae hoped he hadn't used it as a ramen holder. Win replied he did read it. Win asked if it was true the detective agency's short film wasn't going into production. Youngdae agreed, saying an investor suddenly agreed to produce it, so they might have an audition. When asked if produced, would it release in a theater? Youngdae denied it, saying even numerous commercial films fail to make it, let alone a short. Wynn wondered, what if it goes well? Youngdae explained it would win awards at public exhibitions, so he asked which company backed Detective Agency. Youngdae sent him a link to a film specialist community for information. Wynn thanked him. He also told Youngdae to imagine being an unknown actor. What would he do if cast by a tycoon PD or amazing writer? Youngdae felt strange he asked that. Ultimately, he told him for such a big project, many actors would play any role. Such a situation wouldn't even occur. Disappointed, Wynn mentally apologized, thinking that situation was right before him. Wynn supposed the unknown actor was himself, so he wondered what fee he'd accept. He replied a rookie usually gets around 30,000 won per episode, but he'd accept even just 3,000 won. However, for Wynn, 3,000 won seemed low. The next day, Wynn was with Lee, who acted rudely. Before entering, Lee stopped Wynn, saying this matter was nearly a first for him, like today's fee negotiation. Confused, Wynn wondered if he was here to negotiate the fee today. He didn't know Lee's expectation, but the amount Wynn would hear was above average. Lee honestly told him he was against it, as lots of rumors from the start weren't good. He was saying this to help before meeting the PD. Wynn realized this guy was unexpectedly kind and worried about him. Due to Youngdae's remarks, he hoped they'd grant him at least over 3,000 won. One thought Woo-in shouldn't anticipate more. Arriving, Lee informed the PD he'd brought Mr. Woo-in. The PD welcomed him, presented the contract, and suggested he review it due to numerous complex details. However, Manu wished to discuss the set appearance fee. Looking at it, Woo-in was shocked. Approximately 250,000 won per episode. He realized this was 800 times more than 3,000 won. Unsure if pre-tax or post-tax, it surpassed his monthly salary. Taken aback, Woo-in froze nervously. Manu wondered if Woo-in deemed it insufficient, so he clarified the usual range was 20,000 to 40,000 won per episode. Woo-in was a special case, and treating him like a rookie was regrettable. The 250,000 won per episode was separate from additional fees like reruns or YouTube. Appearing in later episodes could earn him over 10 million won. Wynn replied he somewhat expected that amount, internally wondering what top actors like Hong Ha-yeon receive. Manu felt certain Woo-in would soon get tens of millions per episode. Woo-in thought things he only read about in articles might happen to him. They asked his opinion. It wasn't insufficient, but he was curious about his current worth, asking if he was truly worth only 250,000 won per episode. Manu expected mild disappointment. Woo-in recalled Ryder Park now. He knew a few pennies weren't important. They must seize the opportunity. Lee was shocked when Manu offered 350,000 won. They asked if it sounded tempting now. Woo-in replied he thought it was sufficient. Lee felt relieved. Now, having brief time, Lee started explaining the contract since Hang's entire schedule was mentioned. Woo-in understood nothing, deciding to just remember keywords for now. Manu explained that when Profiler Hang released, the entire entertainment industry would pursue him, necessitating an agency. Manu stated he'd hand over the first script draft today and requested Woo-in's best effort for Assistant Manager Park's role. Exiting the lift, Woo-in couldn't believe his casting was confirmed. Excitedly wondering if he was really an actor, he thought people would see him on TV. He also wondered if he'd get a manager. Youngdae had explained agencies have pros and cons. Large companies offer strong backing but are stricter, while smaller ones provide less support but more freedom. He wondered when he'd choose an agency. Youngdae grew suspicious when Woo-in asked about agencies. As Woo-in mentioned needing to tell his parents, his mom called. He added he needn't tell their daughter yet. On the call, she asked if he switched jobs. Woo-in told her he thought he was becoming an actor. She went silent, then called him her son and asked if he wanted to go to the hospital. 2 days after finalizing the Assistant Manager Park contract, rumors about Kong Woo-in as a hidden actor began spreading industry-wide. Since Profiler Hang held significant standing among domestic production companies and entertainment agencies, starting with Sea Blue Studio, the rumors escalated. They spread across media, agencies, production companies, and broadcasting stations. With his name concealed, Kong Woo-in gradually gained fame. Of course, our hero Kong Woo-in remained completely unaware. He saw information Youngdae sent from the film community link, but not all was verified, making blind trust hard. Still, he saw an article about the short film, which seemed relevant. The post also had many views and comments. He searched more for director Shin Dong-chun, but found nothing, only the film company's location and their short film specialty. As Youngdae told Woo-in, the independent short and art film scene seemed tough. Woo-in considered giving up on the detective agency project, but that scenario was too interesting to release. Besides, while TV dramas are judged by ratings and considered B-grade, he remained deeply curious. Hearing even top-tier actors start small, he thought he might try starting with something minor like the short film. If no spot was available, nothing could be done. For now, his only option was visiting the film company directly. He finished reading the entire script and now needed to focus on the drama. Deciding to enter the subspace, his smartphone suddenly rang. Someone was calling him from an unknown number. Darn it, he thought. It was probably his sister, having just heard from Mom about him becoming an actor. He was sure she was calling to mock him. He wasn't going to answer, but the phone kept ringing. He picked up, shouting at her, then saw a different number. Was she using a friend's phone? He answered, and it was Hong Hyeon calling. Woo-in, baffled, thought the top actress Hong Hyeon was calling him directly. Blushing, Woo-in tried to stay calm. He needed to maintain a tough act. With a character shift, he boasted, "Hello." She replied it wasn't the reaction she expected. She'd heard he'd confirmed taking the assistant manager Park role. She told him, since it was unexpected, many rumors were circulating among staff, and everyone was curious. He wondered, did that really happen? Replying, "Is that so?" She agreed, adding laughingly that at this rate, he'd be popular at the first script reading. Everyone thought it was a famous actor, but realizing it was someone unknown would make their reactions interesting. She bid him farewell, saying she'd see him at the reading. Blushing from her laughter, he thanked her for her hard work. She pouted, "Don't force me to work, I'm resting right now," and hung up. Our poor Woo-in was completely destroyed by her. He thought industry people definitely reacted differently than family. Mom's first reaction would be asking if he wanted to go to the hospital, and he realized his sister would laugh. He decided to find information on the detective agency. Somewhere in a restaurant, Manu called out to Shin Dong-chan. Someone said he was very late. Manu apologized. Dong-chan was slightly surprised when Manu said the profiler Hang script meeting had also run late. He asked how many scripts were finished. Manu answered about 2 to 3 episodes. Roughly, various finalized articles would publish tomorrow. But he asked why Dong-chan was eating kimchi with soju, adding if he acted miserable, his life would be miserable too. Dong-chan replied his situation truly was miserable, so why pretend otherwise? Manu asked if he'd completely lost his spirit. Dong-chan was from the same SBC drama department as Manu, so Manu asked if he quit SBC just to make such weak excuses. With a dark face, Dong-chan listened as Manu said he'd heard Dong-chan even found an investor for his movie. So Manu asked the project name. Dong-chan answered the title was Detective Agency, a short film. Manu had also heard the cost was around 30 million won. Dong-chan told him it wasn't finalized, the investor was from entertainment. In exchange, they wanted a few rookies included and Park Young-hook as male lead. Shocked, Manu said even viewed positively, Detective Agency would become his cleanup project at best. Then Manu asked if he should introduce an actor. Dong-chan asked if all actors around him weren't top tier. Manu replied just because they were top tier didn't mean they ignored independent or short film scripts, but the one he wanted to introduce was someone else. Curious, Dong-chan asked who. Manu explained he was someone they struggled to cast in their drama, Kong Woo-in. However, Dong-chan said if involved in his drama, Woo-in would likely focus more there. Manu told him Woo-in would definitely be a big hit. They should try. Dong-chan agreed, saying so much had happened over the past 3 years. He was exhausted. The next day, as dawn broke, the entertainment field was on fire due to profiler Hang's full-scale promotion. The article stirred public curiosity by teasing details until the premiere date. Meanwhile, Park Uni clarified, saying this work would feature a truly standout scene-stealer actor, riding the wave of public anticipation. The drama title was revealed around lunchtime. The news spread quickly, soon attracting public interest. Dongchan was happy for his friend's work, but also a bit envious. Today, manager Park from Go Entertainment was supposed to bring rookies around 3 p.m., but they didn't arrive. He got up saying they acted like the boss. He should just give up. Suddenly, someone called him. Dongchan looked. The man was tall and decent looking. He must be one of Go Entertainment's newcomers. Dongchan said he was a bit late. He'd said 3 p.m. Woo-in asked if he was speaking to him. Dongchan replied, "No, that's not it," and asked where Director Park had gone. While waiting for Park, Dongchan asked if he should watch some of his acting. Dongchan thought the company was famous for having many unremarkable rookies, but his aloofness inspired a degree of trust. Dongchan asked if he hadn't just come to show his face, and when replied he had performances prepared. Dongchan told him length didn't matter, just show him. Win began acting, explaining it portrayed a sudden event. While a man named Kim Rujin ran the agency alone, a client in his 40s came in. He requested confirmation, suspecting his wife was having an affair. Kim Rujin took the infidelity case and observed the client's wife. As expected, the wife met another man while her husband was away. Kim Rujin followed the pair, trailing them to a secluded villa deep in Kongan from lunchtime into early afternoon. The two spent time like a couple, but suddenly the man's head fell into his soup bowl. Seeing this, the wife called someone. A burly man appeared, dragged the fallen man to a car, and disappeared. Having only taken the case, Kim Rujin was stunned to witness a murder scene. Confirming the villa window was open, he cautiously stepped inside. The basement door was left open. A stranger lay face down. After confirming the man was alive, Kim Ryujin shook him. Hearing noise upstairs, he hid in a basement corner piled with broken furniture. Now Kim Ryujin was a fugitive inside the villa. The atmosphere was intensely unnerving, requiring top-notch acting to make the villa feel nightmarish. Moreover, it heavily relied on sound effects, making auditory presentation crucial. Dongchan was shocked when Woo-in finished, saying, "That's all for now." Dongchan thought it must have been challenging. It was crazy. It felt like Kim Ryujin had appeared before him, an acting style he'd never seen. Suddenly, a man appeared with two actors saying, "Director Shin?" He was a bit late and asked who the person before them was. Confused, Dongchan asked if Director Park didn't know him. Win told him there seemed to be a misunderstanding, then introduced himself as Kong Win. Now it made sense to Win. After reading the story, he'd prepared to be turned away, but wondered why they acted like they knew him. Win realized that big guy was the person originally expected. Dissatisfied, Director Park asked if they should just stay. Dongchan replied their appointment was for 3 p.m. Win felt things might get messy if they lingered, so he said he'd head back. He'd come interested in grade B, but it seemed tough. He looked at the two guys and added, it was as expected. Both lead and supporting roles were already decided. He didn't really want anything below a supporting role. Dongchan was desperately calling Win. Then he felt the name sounded familiar, wondering where he'd heard it. After a moment, he remembered. Kong Win was the name he mentioned. Could it be the same person? Elsewhere in a restaurant, they gathered for a meal. Manu got a call answering, "To Dongchan?" "He's in a meeting now." Dongchan told him about the actor mentioned yesterday, Kong Win, with striking features and a cynical aura, asking if he had a deep voice. Manu also asked how he knew that. They were shocked when he said an actor named Kong Win came to see him today. So Manu asked what that friend did when visiting. He replied they showed their acting skills. Dongchan said it was like he perfectly embodied a character he'd written. No, the way he acted it out was even more vivid. Manu replied when someone watches his acting, that's usually how it goes. He didn't know the exact situation, so he'd contact Win separately. He told him one thing. Kong Win's showing up out of the blue meant the phoenix came flying on its own. Dongchan was surprised when he added, if he let that chance go, he'd regret it. Dongchan asked if he was really worthy of such high praise. Manu explained they were both captivated by his acting. Besides, he hadn't judged solely on acting. He added there's a unique, mysterious texture about him. He's destined to be top-notch. Manu said they'd barely cast him, yet someone like him came to Dongchan personally to showcase his acting. Then he asked if that didn't mean he had passion for his work. Dongchan asked, passion for his detective agency? In Manu's judgment, he replied, yes. Manu wasn't sure how that man obtained his script. but he explained Kong Wen wasn't the type to travel far for work. It clearly showed Kong Wen liked his detective agency. Manu asked if Wen would go through all that trouble if he didn't care. Worried, he wondered if Wen valued his work. Manu gave Woojin's number, saying since Wen went personally, it should be fine to share his contact. He told him to call Wen and schedule a proper meeting. Hanging up, Manu thought Wen went there himself and felt slightly jealous at his age. He then apologized to the group, citing an urgent call, and told them to continue. Hyen assumed they discussed Kong Wen and decided to ask later. She then asked Ryder Park what she'd mentioned wanting to share earlier. It was minor. The clothes H-Star sent as samples were too flashy, so Yumi told her to ask stylists for more casual outfits. Nervously, Hayan replied their designers got carried away and promised to clarify. Yumi also told Ryu Youngman to adjust his diet before the script reading. Youngman laughed lightly, saying he maybe ate too much sashimi while fishing, and agreed. He asked the director who played assistant manager Park due to rumors, but nobody knew. He interacted most with assistant manager Park in the script and requested a hint about their image for practice. Manu said it was a surprise, telling everyone they'd see the actor on reading day, asking him to wait. Speaking of the reading, Manu asked everyone to listen, wondering if they could turn it into a chance to go somewhere nice and bond. Meanwhile, Wen finished his bath and guessed the detective agency project was set, with leads confirmed. Both actors were insanely handsome, making him wonder if that many good-looking unknowns existed. He thought contract power surpassed subspace abilities. It hit him now he'd just been lucky joining Profiler Hang. Though losing detective agency was a shame, Wen couldn't obsess. Then an unknown number called. He'd been getting many lately. Putting on a tough act, he answered. It was Dong Chan, whom he'd met. Wen recalled the square-jawed director but questioned why he'd call now. He asked how Dong Chan got his number. Dong Chan apologized, saying Manu provided it. Confused why Manu was involved, Dong Chan requested another meeting to discuss detective agency. The next morning, they met at a cafe near Woojin's house. Wen arrived and Dong Chan gestured for him to sit. Wen dripped indifference, and Dong Chan felt his presence differed from typical actors. Dong Chan apologized for last night's call, admitting it was rude. Wen said it was okay and nervously asked his purpose. Dong Chan said abruptly, "What did you think of my script?" Wen stayed silent, making Dong Chan feel he was confessing hidden feelings. Dong Chan melted when Wen replied he felt attached, calling it art. It was a script always ignored. He was overjoyed an actor finally cherished his work. A tear fell. Dong Chan felt years of being trampled and ignored healing. Wiping tears, he thanked Wen poker-faced. Wen stood baffled why he'd suddenly cried, silently wondering if attached caused it. Though over the top, he'd used the word to seem polite while acting tough. Wen was startled when tearful Dong Chan asked which detective agency aspect he loved most. First, Wen lowered his voice to maintain the act, then praised details to calm him. Dong Chan couldn't believe Wen knew so much intricately, as if he'd entered detective agency's world. He must have read the script dozens of times. Clenching his fist, Dong Chan decided he couldn't discard an actor this invested just to clean up another's mess. Nothing else mattered. Wen was puzzled when Dong Chan declared they must overturn the table. Then Dong Chan asked Wen to please take the role of Kim Roojin, the protagonist of Detective Agency with a poker face. Wen stood silently, perplexed by the situation while Dong Chan pleaded like a puppy. Wen wondered if he'd misheard. Dong Chan honestly revealed the film was actually intended for festivals like Mayan. He explained the Mayan Short Film Festival was renowned, featuring commercial films such as The Godfather or Citizen Kane. Judges were esteemed Korean directors, with occasional top actors as honorary judges. Competition was fierce, with many new directors participating. Actors who won often became stars. Over 600 films were submitted annually, and making the top 40 was like winning the lottery. It was a battleground for serious filmmakers. Evaluation was stringent, focusing primarily on direction and acting. If no work met standards, the award was withheld. In over 20 years, only about 10 works had won the grand prize, making it a significant step towards industry fame. Confused, Wen had never heard of it before. He just pretended partial knowledge for now and replied, "Yes, to some extent." The festival would be held in 2 months, and Dong Chan was aiming for it. However, Detective Agency's production looked highly unpromising, and he gave a rough history. Dong Chan decided to cancel everything and start from scratch with Win Central. Win felt things were escalating and told the director such extremes weren't necessary. Dong Chan slammed his fist on the table, declaring, "It's not too much." With determination, he said, "Don't worry, I will endure it all," telling Win to focus solely on acting. Fire in his eyes, Dong Chan started shouting, "Let's do it together." Internally, Win thought stopping him seemed feasible now. Grinning, Win considered at least his goal was achieved, and it wasn't a bad proposal. Win extended his hand, saying he looked forward to working with him. They shook hands and he replied, "Me too." Dong Chan's flames reignited before the perplexed Win. He vowed to secure both a production company and investors. If that failed, he'd raise money through contacts. Win was truly on his acting path. He guessed he needed to study by watching movies. Then his ego surged, realizing he'd replaced the lead, thinking the other side must be upset. Meanwhile, Giab angrily slammed his hand on his desk, exclaiming, "How dare he go against me?" He was CEO of GIO Entertainment. Giab shouted everything was smooth until yesterday. The man explained Blue Vision Films called, and suddenly the director scrapped everything. Giab called Jung Huk, instructing him to pick another script. Jung Huk agreed to choose one, being a top actor, adding it was strange why attitudes shifted now. Giab wondered if director Shin Dong-chan had cast another lead, maybe an A-list celebrity or higher, but that seemed nonsensical to Giab. He deemed it a trash script circulating for 2 years. He asked manager Park if he'd seen or heard of other actors. Park replied no other well-known actors were involved. Giab assumed they were just interviewing for minor roles and asked if anything else stood out. He added no real incentive existed for a top-tier actor to join Detective Agency. Giab concluded they chose a B-list actor as a safe bet over troublesome Jung Huk, which insulted GIO Entertainment. Giab ordered Park to watch Shin Dong-chan visit independent and short film companies and spread the word. Park was confused by "spread the word," so Giab clarified, "Tell them not to invest a single penny into Detective Agency." Without money, he couldn't start. He told Jung Huk to pick another short film script. He'd support it to outperform Detective Agency. He demanded they pick something to win at the Mian Short Film Festival and ensure Shin Dong-chan fell hard, regretting it. Hyen stood inside her agency, BW Entertainment, typing on her phone. She'd uncovered Win was working on a short film with Dong-chan by texting Manhwa and eagerly sought the film's name from him. Hyen was overjoyed finding it was called Detective Agency. She wondered why Win would do that after landing a major production and wanted to see Woo Jin's acting in that short film. She was trying to act like Win and was certain he'd overshadow all top actors once successful. She had no doubt the same would apply to her. Hyen truly didn't want any delays. She entered her agency office where a man was just about to contact her. Before he could speak, she interrupted, requesting a favor: to investigate the status of a short film titled Detective Agency. Choi Song asked why she suddenly inquired about a short film. Jokingly, he told her not to say that. While preparing for Profiler Han, she planned to do a short film. She replied no, she was just mildly curious. Choi Song exclaimed like a startled cat, saying that meant she was interested. Worriedly, he noted if she was interested in something, she usually pursued it. She instructed him to gather even minor details. He responded that gathering info was no major task, but if the script was weak, even he couldn't manage. Hyen refused, stating PD Song must have had a reason, and also that Detective Agency was Shin Dong-chun's project. He then playfully asked his reward for helping. She retorted she'd been the one feeding him. He denied it, saying she hadn't done it solo, though he suggested renewing the shampoo she dropped, conditional on replacing the manager she disliked. Hyen sighed, frustrated, asking how an agency CEO could act like that. Choi Song mocked her, calling the artist unpredictable, leaving her unable to argue. He looked at her, stating he knew her sudden interest wasn't due to PD Song or Shin Dong-chun. She realized he was perceptive. She told him there was a guy named Kong Win. He asked if it was her new boyfriend. She angrily replied he was an actor. Hyen quickly explained everything about Win. He mentioned Ryder Park was wary of even A-listers and asked why she was so desperate. Hyun replied it wasn't about acting level, but her obsession with perfection. She was startled when he concluded she was just interested in Kong Wooin's acting, and she tried denying it. Hyun was startled again when he pointed out she hadn't even read the detective agency script yet. She tried changing the subject, asking their funds. Choi Song realized the diversion, but asked anyway, confused as she began suggesting he prepare money, then started talking about Win again. Choi called her out as she said, after reading the script completely, someone would take it away. He realized she was full of anxiety. He'd worked with Hyun 10 years but never seen her like this. He thought it meant actor Kong Win truly captured her attention. He wondered if it was instinct, ambition, or fear of being outacted. He agreed to investigate, growing curious about what kind of actor Win was to provoke this reaction. He started quickly checking his phone. With his connections, it was easy. He then explained it was a Geo entertainment project, but director Shin Dong-chun scrapped everything. Now they were upset and influencing indie companies. She didn't grasp it, so he clarified that without funding, production would be troublesome. Hyun called him Appa, asking if BW Entertainment wasn't also starting to invest. Elsewhere, Manu suddenly summoned Win. Arriving, Manu welcomed him, saying there was something to discuss. Yumi also waved at Win. He wondered if that was a studio. It seemed more like an apartment block. Manu also told him it was essentially like a regular apartment. Before the main topic, Manu asked how he obtained the detective agency script. Win was too tired for detail, but no need to lie, so he answered vaguely, an acquaintance. He asked if the source truly mattered. Manu denied it, calling it a casual question. His real curiosity was why Wooin chose detective agency mid-drama. As Wooin found it interesting, he asked if it was that surprising. Manu honestly answered it felt a bit risky. He thought the assistant manager Park role was considered minor and decided to act subtly cool and vague, unbothered. Wooin replied that instinct mostly drove his choice. He thought that was solid, wondering nervously if he was a genius. Manu replied his humor seemed good. He thought instinct or project discernment was essential for an actor, a key quality. He wondered if that was true, then detective agency would definitely succeed. Manu asked if it was the instinct that detective agency would be a hit. Win wondered why Manu was shocked, thinking instinct was common. He agreed, saying it wouldn't fail and would be successful. If you enjoyed the video and want more stories like this, leave a like, share it, and comment on the next part so we can bring you more stories like these. See you next time.